In 2017, the NCRB announced that it would partner with the Hyderabad-based Advanced Data Research Institute to create a predictive policing model that could be applicable throughout the country. But there's been no real news of it in the recent past, and we don't know how far along this project has come. While there have been no further reports about the development of this kind of system, many states like Jharkhand, Maharashtra, and Delhi already use some sort of predictive policing models. So, how do some of these models work, and why is it necessary to study them at this point? Well, let's find out. Let's start with taking a look at Delhi. Vidushi Marda and Shivangi Narayan's paper, which came out earlier this year, is one of the earliest papers of its kind to study predictive policing in the country. They studied Delhi's model, which is called the Crime Mapping, Analytics and Predictive System. For us, we'll just call it CMAPS. Now, this system depends on a host of different kinds of input data. For example, it looks at things like the geographical boundaries, railways, metro lines, police jurisdiction, and a lot more to put together its information. It is also equipped with different layers that can help the police figure out crimes in different situations. For instance, there are filters that can point out crowded places like markets or colleges, schools, that kind of stuff, as well as filters that can look at different sorts of settings so that they can take into account even minority colonies or refugee settlements and other things like that. But just how accurate is this system? Well, it turns out there are lots of issues. Marda and Narayan find in their paper that the Delhi police's mode of data collection and creation has a disproportionate impact on historically marginalized and vulnerable groups. They also find that crimes are more likely to be recorded when they come from organized settlements as opposed to shanty establishments. Now, this leads to an imbalance in how and why a crime hotspot is recorded and classified. There's also widespread selective enforcement because the system is heavily dependent on individuals making different choices at the ground level. Now, this often leads to over-policing of vulnerable areas or minority communities and adds to a certain layer of discrimination that already exists in terms of caste, class, gender, and different amounts of social inequities. There is a kind of secrecy to the systems in general and information about the systems, and because the public doesn't know enough about it as well, there's not enough demand to understand how these systems function. There's honestly very little information about the different states that are using predictive policing models or have them in development, or about the national predictive policing models as envisioned by the NCRB. As these technologies and models become more and more embedded into our everyday systems and, well, eventually our everyday lives, we need to be able to stop and to ask why, what, where, and how. It's important to understand what the right way forward is. Authorities in India, unfortunately, have not been very clear or concise about the kinds of predictive policing software that are out there or are being developed. And even if you look at the Delhi model, Vidushi Marda and Shivangi Narayan point out that there are purposely attempts to create an opaque system around the software. This is proven by the fact that, to the best of their knowledge, predictive policing mechanisms fall outside the purview of the right to information. And to be honest, this is probably hidden behind the cloak of security, national interest, or the protection of strategic information. So, well, the main thing that needs to be tackled as we move forward is transparency. Transparency, transparency, transparency. For one, there should be a clearly mandated standard operating procedure at every step of the use of this algorithm with the aim to limit human biases as much as possible. There have to be clear limits on discretionary action as well as effective and well laid out plans for grievance redressal mechanisms. Before such technology is developed or procured, a publicly available request for procurement must be published. This should clearly specify the technical specifications as well as the scope of use of such technology. And this has happened before in the case of facial recognition software that's being used by different authorities. The system should be created and designed in a manner that they can account for the different kinds of social contexts that they operate in. Right? What we have in Delhi, for example, is very different than what we have in Hyderabad. And designing these systems to be more transparent and publicly accessible by themselves will pave the way for much better policing, much better accountability on the part of the citizens as well as the law enforcement. And this can help create a more honest, open, and effective policing system.